Howdy, howdy, howdy. We are at it again. Yeah, good deal. So, oh, you know what I've got to do? Got to put my words in that I just wrote. I think that's this, right? Yep. And that's going to go in here. I think, yep, this is it. And we will paste over that. Whoops, that wasn't what I wanted. Hmm. There we go. All right. Okay, so 16,000 words so far this week. 15 is like my minimum. I'm going to wind up bumping that up very soon. This has basically been, the outline has basically been abandoned. It was a good starting point, but I pivoted, and we're about 7,000 words in, just shy. I need to fix one thing here. Let me. Huh. Oh, it's good. That was really weird. Oh, well. I don't know what did that, but it's all good. Okay. Back to the editing today. That's what we're doing. We are going to be looking at a line edit on this book. This is a book I wrote some time ago. Actually, quite some time ago. I think, yeah, the comments here go back to like 2018. So this is about the time gosh, that's 6 years ago now. Okay, this book was written about 6 years ago and then basically put on a shelf. And I revisited it at one point, and I really like some of the things in here. I like the world that I'm exploring. It's a novella length. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it exactly. I've released episodes to my subscribers, though. And so I have a few more chapters to go through here, about 5,600 words, it looks like, that I have to go through and just give a once over to. I want to continue this as its own series, but as it is now, this book itself is not quite what I want it to be. But I've made the promise to my subscribers that I'm going to finish this, and so I've got to finish it. It's probably not. I don't know what I'm going to do with it ultimately, because this is introducing some characters. This might wind up being the free book in this series that is kind of an optional read. I don't know. It's not terrible. The big problem is really that the main character can't stick around. If I'm going to continue this series, the main character is going to have to eventually leave because she's part of my main series, so she can't stick around for this stuff. So I've got to figure that out. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm still workshopping it with, myself. But off we go.
Shouldn't we be trying to find Carl? Vesa asked. Glax shook her head. Why the fuck would I want to chase down Carl when I can hunt down that Callie bastard? She swerved the hover skiff around a building. She was undeterred by any sort of risk. Look, I thought we needed to find Carl before he did. That Saren cuck still has the drugs and the tech. Glax looked over her shoulder at Vesa. Yeah, but if we find ZJ and kill him, then he ain't gonna a problem now, will he? Vesa sighed. I guess. Glax flew the skiff low over the cityscape. The alleyways were full of bodies, all of them running to or away from the commotion that was happening around the tower. The Saren had really fucked things up. They thought they knew how to fix everything, but all they did was create more problems. You can't fix shit, just like you can't polish a turd. And Vey was a turd. We ain't gonna find him here. Glax. Vesa reached out and grabbed onto Glax's arm, but she shook her off. Come on.
So Vey is the planet that they're on. That's the planet that they're on. It's kind of a backwater place. It's interesting. I realize we're jumping into like the middle of this, so but yeah, Saron, these are the good guys. I'll leave it at that. That's pretty much it. But these characters, the point of view characters, are Vey, and so to them,
We ain't gonna find him here. Glax. Vesa reached out and grabbed onto Glax's arm, but she shook her off. Come on, what's gotten into you? It's like you've got some sort of vendetta against this guy. Then what? Glax shook her head. Whatever. He don't deserve to breathe this smog no more. She pulled the skiff up, did a tight 180. But you're right. We ain't gonna have any luck finding him here. We'll go to the source. The source? You know where ZJ's place is. Glax didn't acknowledge her, just sped off in the direction of the east side. They flew over slums and the dump, past the refinery. There was a big shed-looking building there beyond the fence of the refinery. Glax was zeroing in on it. That's it. Glax nodded, pointed to a container that was strapped to the skiff. Open that thing up, would ya? I don't think that's a good idea. Glax slapped her. Just do it. Vesa undid her harness, lowering herself down to her knees. She clubbed to whatever she could get a hold of. The slightest movement of the skiff could throw her off to her death. She managed to open the container and look inside. Grenades? How did you know we were going to need grenades? Glax wasn't in the mood to talk it over. Grab a handful of them and start lobbing them down at that motherfucker's base. Vesa was beginning to question who was really in charge here. This wouldn't have been her plan, if she were the one driving the skiff. But when Glax told her to start lobbing, she lobbed. She pulled pins and lobbed. That bastard thinks he's so damned smart, doesn't he? Glax muttered to herself. Vesa spat a grenade pin out her mouth, tossed it over the edge. This is more than just a job to you, ain't it? The grenades booming in the background drowned out Glax's voice, but Vesa assumed she'd said something snarky or snide. Vesa kept at it, though it wasn't amounting to much. Whatever ZJ had built his base out of, it was sturdy stuff. There would definitely be some cosmetic work required, but Vesa doubted anyone would get hurt. They were throwing pebbles and a palace. At this rate off would return before they were done. Glax jerked the skiff around abruptly. Vesa started to slide, caught herself on a loose tie-down strap. She pulled herself up to her feet and strapped herself back in her harness. All right, that's it. If you want to throw grenades, be my guest. But I ain't gonna put my life on the line for. She looked up. There was a shuttle coming toward them. One of the Callies. You think that's him? Glax's eyes were locked on the shuttle. I know it's him. She sped up. The skiff was headed straight for the shuttle, and ZJ didn't seem to know they were there. Hey, you gonna get us killed? Glax didn't seem to care. She made her approach, pulling away at the last minute and tailing the shuttle. Whatever plan she had wasn't readily apparent. She was dangerously close to the shuttle now, enough that Vesa could feel the heat coming off the exhaust. The hatch started to open. Grab one of them grenades, Glax shouted. Vesa leaned back, stretching to reach the container of grenades. She came back with two, handed one to Glax. They pulled out the pins and lobbed them one at a time. Someone appeared in the open hatch, looking down at them. The grenades went in, and she jumped down, landing on the skiff. The ship tipped to one side until Glax was able to recover, but by then the skiff was already out of control. The Cali shuttle exploded in midair. Smoke and fire filled the air. Cass punched Glax in the throat, pulled her pistol on Vesa. Miss me, bitch.
Ooh. So when I edit, I actually edit in different colors. This is kind of a fun thing that I do. Let me see if I can go back here. So my first draft shows up in red sometimes, or typically it will show up in red. And then my line edits are in blue. And then I do 2 additional edits that show up in these colors. And then final edits are in green. I've recently switched these colors up. So there's some old drafts that have different colors in them. But this way I can go back and look at a draft and see, okay, this is what it was originally. And here are all the individual changes that I made. It's kind of fun. So with this story here, I'm honestly not trying to fix a lot of the major issues with it right now. I've kind of accepted that it is what it is and it's imperfect, and I'm okay with that. I want to revisit this at some point, but what this is there's characters being introduced, but not really the characters that I could continue with aren't getting enough screen time. This story really isn't about them. So it seems more like a side story almost. And that might be fine. That might be what it is. And I leave it as is. And then each the other characters I can continue with in a dedicated series. That might be better. So I repeated air here. That's what that was. What was this? Yeah, the grenades aren't really booming in the background. They're booming. They're like throwing them down. I will say down below. And which one of these airs is necessary? Smoke and fire. Well, this whole sentence is kind of weak. I will say it drew a across the sky as it careened. That it's with a C. This is what authors do, guys. We don't know what words are. We just type them, and then if we get a good word, no, spell check has probably ruined me somewhat, but I don't know. Careened. It's not a word I use that often. As it careened in a death spiral toward the ground. below. Did we say below? Below. Yep, no, that should be fine. I feel better about that. Okay, next chapter. Ooh, this one's a little bit longer. Oh, that's right.
What options do we have? Bodo shrugged. They were hiding off the streets in an alleyway. By now they should have met up with Kaz, but the Saren had gotten far too nosy. We did what she asked, Bodo said. We got the Mesav and Saren focused on each other, but now we gotta get out of here. That's our only option. Aaron sighed. How are we going to get out of here if we don't know where her ship is? Bodo raised an eyebrow at him. You don't think I don't know where it is, do ya? Aaron put his hands on his hips. Well, then why'd we make the deal with her in the first place? She winked. Cause is a friend. Come on, we can make it to her place quick. Her goons'll know what's up. Aaron nodded. They left the alleyway, stepping out into the street again. The Saren had cleaned up. If Aaron hadn't been in the situation he was in, he'd have been out there with them, no doubt. It felt odd to hide from them, his own people, his brothers. But that's what happened when you broke trust as a Saren. You were exiled. I can never go back, he muttered. Bodo heard it, though he had tried to hide it. She looked over her shoulder at him. You haven't second thoughts now, lover boy. Aaron took a look into her blue eyes. There's a part of me that is. I don't know whether or not going with you is the right choice, Bodo, but it beats the alternative. She smiled at him from the corner of her mouth. I'll grow on ya, lover boy. Just you wait. They turned a corner without thinking. They should have checked first. An entire squad of Saren was standing there in the street. Bodo and Aaron both froze. Shit, what do we do? Aaron put a hand on her shoulder. Well, you already stopped, and they can sense blood in the water. So, the squad of blacks was coming their way now. Their curiosity was piqued. Hey, the squad leader called out to them. You two, what are you guys doing out here? Bodo grabbed onto Aaron's arm with a viper's grip. Fuck, you got this one. Aaron lowered his gaze, hoping his hood was covering his face. If they recognized him, he was done for. We just passing through is all. It was his best attempt at the Bay accent, and it seemed to work. The soldiers exchanged glances. Hey, Sarge, since when do Bay men and women walk around the streets together? That seems a bit odd, don't you think? The sergeant nodded, his eyes boring a hole through Aaron's head. It is odd. Let's see your identification. Anything you've got on you. Understood. Aaron looked up at the sergeant. He recognized him, but did he recognize Aaron yet? No, not yet. He held up his hands. Officers, we don't have any identification on us. The sergeant squinted at him. You look familiar. He glanced at Bodo, then back at Aaron. Who are you? I told you, officer, we don't have any identification on us. I don't care. What do you have on you? Bodo shoved Aaron out of the way. I got this. From out of her coat she drew her rifle. The spray ripped the soldiers apart, at least those closest to them. The others scrambled for cover. Pick up a gun, you idiot. Bodo shouted at him. Aaron ducked down and grabbed a machine gun from one of the fallen soldiers. The soldier grabbed him by the arm, still alive despite his wounds. It was the sergeant. Fucking traitor. Aaron ripped the gun away from the sergeant. He and Bodo took off running. He followed her lead. She knew the streets better than he did, but he hoped she wouldn't lead them into another trap like that last one. After a while, it seemed apparent that she'd gotten them clear of the Saren, but for how long remained to be seen. Where is Kaz's place from here? That's where the shuttle is, I'm guessing. Bodo frowned. How'd you know? Geez, I thought I was the smart one out of the two of us. Aaron rolled his eyes. It wasn't that hard to figure out once you said you knew where it was. Whatever. Bodo didn't like being outsmarted. It ain't too far, but we gonna have to be on our toes. Not for the Saren. They won't come this way unless they've got a good reason. We gotta keep an eye out for Vessa's goons. Aaron nodded. He checked every alleyway they passed by, looked around every corner. He wasn't going to let them get ambushed again. Bodo was starting to get annoyed. The fuck are you doing? I'm making sure we don't get popped in the head. You should be paying attention. Two heads are better than one. 2 heads. She glanced down at his crotch. How's that worked out for you so far? Aaron grumbled, ignored the comment. Let's just play it safe. We get to this ship and we get out of here, right? That's something we want guaranteed. I'm not taking any more chances. They continued on a little longer. The streets empty. The soldiers in the streets had likely scared everyone into going inside. Aaron was fine with that, but it made them stand out like a sore thumb. Wait a minute, Bodo said, stopping before entering an intersection. You hear that? Aaron listened. What? That humming sound? Is that what you mean? Bodo nodded. Yeah, don't it sound like a shuttle in idle? Aaron looked up, peered through the clutter of roofs and buildings overhead. If there's a shuttle up there, it's not sitting out where anyone can see it. Bodo nodded. All right, we gotta be extra sneaky then. Aaron smirked. Shouldn't be hard, right? Bodo didn't answer. They stepped out into the open. Aaron wondered why, but he didn't ask. He had to trust her. They cut across the street to an industrial-looking building. It was Kaz's place, he assumed. We're just gonna walk straight in, Aaron asked. He knew it couldn't be that simple, though. Nah, there's a side door, dummy. She led them around to the promised side door. Tried the handle. It was locked. She started picking at it with her tools. You know, I could just shoot the... Something clicked inside the lock and the door opened wide. Bodo shrugged. I told ya they call me Sneak. It was dark inside, but Bodo seemed to know where she was going. No one seemed to be home either. What are we looking for? A ship. I know that. I mean, where are we going to find this ship? Bodo turned around, doubled back past him. Here. She started down a stairwell. It was metal, and Aaron's boots were anything but quiet as he followed her down. She outpaced him to the bottom, which was farther down than he thought it could be. When he reached the bottom, Bodo had turned a light on. Why would she keep a ship down here? Wouldn't she want to keep it close to the roof or something? Bodo smirked. Nah, this is a ship that no one knows about. At least none of her goons. They take it joyriding well. I'd hardly say we're going to be joyriding. Bodo gave him a funny look. Why'd you do that? What? That thing with your fingers. Aaron looked at his hands. You mean air quotes? You don't know what that is. The fuck are air quotes? Aaron laughed. But the moment was stolen by a clanking sound from the stairs. Bodo drew her rifle.
I gotta love this. Culturally, air quotes are not universal. Not everybody knows what air quotes are. Oh.
Aaron looked at his hands. You mean air quotes? You don't know what that is. The fuck are air quotes? Aaron laughed. But the moment was stolen by a clanking sound from the stairs. Bodo drew her rifle. Someone's here. Aaron whirled around, drew his weapon. He could hear footsteps coming down to them, soft and slow. Who's there? How many of you are there? Bodo shouted over him. We got guns. Motherfucker. Watch yourself. I ain't gonna cause ya no problems, miss us, a man's voice said. He walked out into the light. Hands up. Bodo lowered her gun. Lefty? The fuck are you doing here? Lefty smiled. I heard Yaz coming in through the side door, miss us. Thought I'd help. He pointed to the door. You want the boss's shuttle, don't ya? Yeah. How'd you know? Lefty shrugged. You two don't stay quiet that much. He smiled. They call you Sneak. Maybe they does. But how do they know to call ya Sneak if they ain't ever caught ya sneaking? Aaron paused. You know, he makes a good point. Bodo pouted. Whatever. Can you help us or not? Lefty, I can indeed, he said. He walked toward the door. At least my nickname makes some damn sense. Aaron laughed. Bodo scowled at him. Left opened the door, led them inside. The shuttle was sitting in the middle of the room. Above was...
And his name makes sense. Because oh, I love it. Okay, so Lefty is just some like low-level grunt. In vase society, women are generally dominant. This is because of some genetic tinkering that's gone on that has caused the male genome to become less stable. And so Lefty is the rare Vey man who is maybe not completely rare, but he's not as dumb as the rest of them. So he's actually somewhat useful. At least my nickname makes some damn sense. That's good. I like it. I like that he's calling out her. Just pointing out like you're. Why are you even called that? It's funny.
Lefty opened the door, led them inside. The shuttle was sitting in the middle of the room. Above was a shaft, big enough for the shuttle to take off through, that opens up at the top. Lefty nodded. Yup. Once you get going, I'll make sure it opens. You better hurry. Now, Vesa and her goons are gonna be back here before long. Yeah, no. Bodo gave Lefty a hug, pecked him on the cheek. Thank you. Lefty blushed. Ah, it was nothing, miss us. Aaron and Bodo entered the shuttle. From the outside it seemed fine, but the inside was another story. What the hell is this? What? You ain't never been in a spaceship before, have ya? Aaron shook his head. No, I never have. Can this thing even get off the ground? Does it have a jump drive? Bodo sat down at the controls, took a look around. It should. I mean, I guess it does. Why wouldn't it? Aaron covered his face with his palm. And I guess this is where you tell me we don't have any other options, right? Bodo started the shuttle's engine. Buckle in, lover boy. They rose up through the shaft. Lefty did as he promised he would, opening the hatch at the top for them. Aaron was tense, anticipating the moment the shuttle would sputter out and stall in the middle of the air. Bodo smiled at him from over her shoulder. Where you wanna go? Anywhere. Wherever we can hide. All right, then. The shuttle scooted on over the cityscape. It was a smoother ride than he thought it was going to be, but that stopped once Bodo tried to start up the jump drive. It whined and whinnied, but it didn't fire up. Well, I guess we're gonna have to get that fixed. Aaron should have known. Yeah, think. There was a loud clanking noise overhead. At first Aaron thought it was the end. The ship was gonna fall apart and they'd fall to their deaths. But it was something worse than that. Almost. He wasn't sure yet. Fuck. We're hooked. Hooked? By what? Bodo turned on a camera, smacking the screen a few times before the picture could show. Fuck. I should have known he'd be after us. Is that the Cali? Bodo smiled. Well, you did want to find out more about him, didn't you? Yeah. Not like this. Can you shake it? The shuttle trembled. They were being towed now. Nah, I ain't gonna be able to shake that. Aaron grabbed his gun. Well, I guess they'll have to take us. Then, the Cali shuttle took over, now in complete control of their flight path. They docked with the shuttle, opening the hatch. I found you. Cause, just like I told you I would. Aaron saw those 6 yellow eyes he'd seen before in the slums. It was ZJ. Bodo raised her rifle. Sorry, Zeej. Cause ain't here.
The double negatives are this is intentional. So education not a priority on Vey. So you don't think I don't know where it is, do you? That's a common phrase. That's a normal way to phrase things. If you don't know that double negatives are a thing, but to the average reader, what does this mean? You think I know where it is, do you? Because if the negatives cancel each other out, you do think I do know where it is. You think I know where it is? But that's not what she's saying. Because here he's saying, how are we going to get out of here if we don't know where her ship is? So he's saying, we don't know where it is. And she says, you don't think I don't know. Meaning, not the double negative. And so this is a quirk of the language. And so I have to somehow make it clear here. So Aaron blinked at the odd use of the double negative. He put his hands on his hips. Yeah, that'll be fine. Here. Okay, so this one's simple. This is Marines. There was a time. So the Marines, the Saron Marines, wear black, and so they call them blacks. It's not a racial term. This is post-racial. in terms of the society. So it's not that. They just call them based on the color of their uniform. But the point of view character is not they. And so that's why I flagged that. He is Saron, and so he would say Marines. They continued on a little longer. The streets empty. The soldiers in the streets. We'll just say the Saron Marines. We'll just go with that. We'll keep it simple here. She's nodding a lot. She's nodding and nodding and nodding. That's why I flagged this. Nodded. Next. How many is that? Oh, that's lots of nodding. Why does everybody have to nod? What? Okay, well, I lost that. I'm not going to be too worried about this. But she nodded right here. See, this is something where Aaron said something. This doesn't actually need to be tagged with her name. You know, it's just them. See, I like to trust my reader that they know who's talking. If I make it clear enough, the name tags just get in the way. So saying this character said this character said that. I try to now. I guess I'm try to be much more conscious and cognizant of the tags that I'm using. Usually going along with some sort of expression or action that implies what they're thinking or feeling. And so this is just a lot of name tagging, but this is an old draft. So, I wrote this 6 years ago. So, cut me some slack. We'll cut that one out. Yeah, I'm good with cutting that out. Or you know what? Maybe this is the weaker one of those two. The smirk is at least, I think I said they stepped out into the open. I think I said something similar to that earlier. I stepped out into the open, out into the light, out. We'll say out into. Stepping out into the street, out into the open, out into the light. Oh, and that's Lefty. They stepped out into the open. Did they? Did they have to? I'll say Bodo. Took the first step out from behind cover. Aaron followed, though he questioned why, even as he was doing it. But he didn't. Yep. He didn't protest. What could we say? He didn't protest. He didn't speak up. He had to trust her. Okay. That one is good. Is that? I think that's. I think we're gonna. It's about 3. Okay, we're gonna leave it there. These last few chapters are pretty short, though. So, and because there's some action sequences going back and forth, I guess we can do this.
Cause savored the look on Vessa's face. The bitch deserved what she had coming to her. You think you're so smart, don't ya? Cause waved her pistol in Vessa's face. The skiff was gradually starting to spin out of control. We all gonna die, you moron. Vessa shouted back. Let her get the controls so we don't crash. Cause smirked. I don't care if I'm dead or not. Vessa, you don't realize that. You think I'm just like you. You all do. But I ain't like any of ya. You all think you're hot shit. But me? Nah, I know my weaknesses. I know my blind spots. Glax grabbed hold of the controls, pulling herself back to her feet.
Wait a minute.
Blind spots. Blind spots.
What is that?
Blind spots. Blind spots.
It doesn't know how to say blind spot? Are you kidding me?
Blind spot. Blind spot.
It's a word, right? Yeah. But how does it do with the singular?
Blind spot.
That's hilarious. You make it a plural, and now
Blind spots.
it doesn't know what the word is anymore. How to confuse a computer.
Glax grabbed hold of the controls, pulling herself back to her feet. What was Mama Lulu, then? Was she your weakness? Cause struck Glax in the head with her elbow. Shut your whore mouth. Glax laughed. Whatever, Cause. I don't give a shit. Glax pulled hard on the controls. The skiff turned over onto its side, spiraling. Cause held on for her life. She wasn't going to be able to reach for the controls to stop Glax. It was all out of her control, like always. The ground became larger as they approached. Cause averted her eyes at first, but she made herself look, convincing herself that she wasn't afraid. But there was no ground. There was only endless blue. The lake. The skiff struck the lake, skidding off of the water once before getting torn apart. Cause was thrown away from the wreckage. She felt the water rush past her, felt it fill her nose and throat. She forced her eyes open, searching for the surface. The green shadow of Talon led her to the top. She gasped and coughed, her aspirator having fallen off her face in the fall. The skiff was floating on the surface of the lake in pieces. Glax and Vessa were nowhere to be seen. Rest easy now, Mama, she whispered. I avenged you. She swam to shore. The rocks were black with oil.
So Mama Lulu is the sort of mentor character in this story. She looked after Kaz and some of the other bosses in their syndicate. And Mama Lulu was murdered. And Vessa thinks that Kaz murdered Mama Lulu, and Kaz thinks that Vessa murdered Mama Lulu, and they hate each other. That is one of the plot elements I chose for this story. And I'm honestly kind of regretting how I handled it. I think all of it has to be cleared up in the end now, and that has to be revealed to both of them that no, neither of you, in fact, murdered Mama Lulu, because otherwise it just can't continue on.
She swam to shore. The rocks were black with oil, and so were her clothes when she finally got out. The lake was tainted like everything else on Bay. She needed a shower, but she wasn't going to get one. She knew better than that. Where do you go now? She asked herself. She didn't expect an answer. When she looked up, she was surrounded. You are going to come with us.
We'll make that a contraction. See, some authors would say, I'm going to type you are, because technically that's 2 words. And if I do that enough, that technically increases my word count. And that's stupid. That's stupid. You don't do that. Right? your word count needs to be just, it doesn't even need to be exact. And so those little things, I remember these are the types of things that I thought about when I was a teenager and writing. And so I have encountered those thoughts. If you are writing and you're thinking to yourself, well, if I don't make that a contraction right now, that will add more words to my word count. You're aiming for the wrong thing, my friend. You are aiming for the wrong thing. Where's this comment? Control. Kind of funny because we're talking about the controls of the skiff, and she's out of control. Everything was out of her control. I like that. Maybe we keep this instance of controls up here. She pulled hard on the controls, and she wasn't going to be able to reach for the controls to stop Glax. Maybe we'll just say she wasn't going to be able to reach Glax in order to stop her. Glax is another character. She's crazy. Glax is just crazy. So her character, at one point in one chapter, I was editing it, and they have an encounter with the main character. Glax is a villain. And instead, the main character escapes. And instead of chasing after the main character, she's like, let's go hunt down that other guy right now. The main character just escaped. And I was reading this and I thought to myself, what the hell was I thinking when I wrote this? And then I decided in that moment, the explanation, because it was going to be so hard to rewrite that whole thing, the explanation was just that she was crazy. She was on something. And I don't mean, casually she's crazy. No, she's actually crazy. And so her behavior is kind of unexplainable. And it needs to be maybe just a little more obvious. So I leaned into it. I think it works. Okay, that comment is resolved. And that means, whoops, we'll change that icon and we're good to go here. So those 3 chapters are ready to go, and these will be going out to my newsletter subscribers tomorrow. And then next week, it'll be just these last 4 chapters, which is only 2,400 words. But we need to keep moving here. So we need to spend a little bit of time. We spent a fair amount of time on Bad Bishop last time. I'm just doing some touch-ups on this because it's kind of being re-released. So I'm going through the fine-tooth comb and kind of just giving things a once-over. This chapter has already had a pretty good once-over already. What is... That's a number that's not supposed to be there. No! My style, and actually I should change my revision mode. I don't show numbers. I prefer to write them out. In almost all cases, and in fact, in the few cases where I do use actual numbers, I'm considering changing them back into words. So my only thought is, do I use that? Yeah, I didn't think so. So I think this chapter here is good. We're gonna skip over it. I know this chapter is good because I rewrote this chapter. I also changed the title of this chapter. It was kind of fun. Oh. The joys of a new computer. All the words you taught your previous computer, this one doesn't know. I'm pretty sure we're good here. Stu Knight. I'm pretty sure we're good. This needs a look. Yeah, let's take a look at this here.
Where is Commander Grawl? Abby shouted to the communications officer. On his way, ma'am. I just received confirmation. Abby focused on the master tabla base, her clammy hands leaving palm prints on the screen. The red dots on the screen weren't part of a simulation. They were her pawns, her fighters. This was real. How did Gerald do this? The last rest is launching fighters. Ma'am, they're taking a direct course. Awaiting your orders. Lines. She needed lines. She dragged a finger across the tabla base, punched in the orders. The tabla base suggested deploying battlespheres, but Abby wanted to wait. Relay commands to all fighters. Keep those legionnaires as far from Intrepid as possible. Ensign Relic looked up at her. That's a conservative course of action, ma'am. High probability of success, unless they see through it. You are not my second, Ensign. You can keep your mouth shut. Wings 1 and 2 went out to meet the Messav fighters, clashing in the middle. There would be high casualties on both sides if it continued for long. It was time to see what Captain Ogre would do. Would he go for the throat or swallow his own words? The last rest started advancing. Launch spearheads. If they tried to fire a single nuke, I want it blowing up in their faces, Abby commanded. The drone fighters launched, appearing on her tabla base. She directed them around the fray in the middle, holding them to intercept any nukes last.
So spearheads are specifically a drone fighter that is intended to intercept nukes, but also act as sort of a decoy. They will also just sometimes ram themselves into actual piloted fighters and other ships as just flying missiles, essentially. So they are intentionally unmanned craft that get shot out of tubes. Pretty cool. And nobody's ever thought of it before. Said every sci-fi author ever. I had a unique idea. I love it when you get a review that says, "Oh, this was nothing unique. This has all been done before." Yeah, my guy, that's genre fiction for you. Genre fiction is it's like kinks. Let me explain. Genre fiction is comparable to kinks. So if you have a certain kink, don't worry, I'm not going to go too far down that road. There's certain things you expect when you're doing certain things. There's a script almost that's written for you. And if you have that kink, that's what you want to have happen. You want those specific things to happen. You don't want to be surprised with something different or something that falls outside those boundaries. And genre fiction is the same way. If you're reading romance, you have certain expectations. If you're reading science fiction, you have certain expectations, and there are certain things you want to have happen. And there are certain things that are within the bounds of science fiction that would be acceptable to happen. And then there are things that fall outside of those bounds. So when you read a story in a genre and you appreciate that genre, you do not see all the tropes. You do not see all the things that are getting repeated over and over and over again in every story, because that's what you like. You actually enjoy it. And you can see the nuances and different things instead. Whereas somebody who's not a fan of that genre, they might just see it as all being the same. Music is probably a better analogy than kinks, now that I think about it, because to me, AC/DC is that thing. When I hear AC/DC, and I like rock and metal, right? Not that AC/DC is really metal, but I appreciate rock music. AC/DC, every single one of their songs sounds exactly the same to me. There's a list of bands that are like that, but AC/DC is at the top of that list. And essentially, it's the same thing for some readers. When they sit down to read a certain genre, it just sounds the same to them, and they can't appreciate the nuances of it. And that's fine. That just means it's probably not the genre for you. Or maybe you need some more time with it to get used to that sort of thing. I don't know. That's my soapbox for today.
Launch spearheads. If they try to fire a single nuke, I want it blowing up in their faces, Abby commanded. The drone fighters launched, appearing on her tabla base. She directed them around the fray in the middle, holding them to intercept any nukes last rest might fire. Their guns are 30 degrees from ideal targeting, ma'am, Relic reported. The tabla base blinked at her. Right. She needed to keep moving. She changed the Intrepid's path on the tabla base. Let's keep that angle wide, shall we? She checked the attrition count. 5. 5 already? That was too many. She looked at the swarm of fighters in the middle. Prep a nuke, she ordered. Just one. Abby did it herself. She grabbed one of the spearheads on the screen, looped it back to the middle of the fray, then drew lines for the fighter wings to retreat. She gave the order, launch it at the spearhead. The pieces started to shift. Her fighters drew back slowly, not wanting to tip their hand to the Messav. The spearhead entered the edge of the dogfight. The nuke launched. All wings, retreat now, Abby announced over the comm. The fighters spun on their heels and turned back to the Intrepid at maximum acceleration. The nuke zipped past them as the Messav legionnaires tried to adjust. But they were too slow, blocking each other's escape in a dense cluster. The nuke and the spearhead met in the middle, taking most of the legionnaires down in one blast. Well executed. Now we finish the job, Abby encouraged the pilots. Ma'am, the last rest is at 2 degrees, Relic said, panicking. They're preparing to fire. How did you let that slip, Ensign? Abby scolded. Finn was grasping the edges of the command table, white-knuckled. The tabla base. They made a quick adjustment. Ma'am, their nukes are armed and firing. 3 yellow lights shot across the screen. Abby redirected the spearheads, but the Messav had gotten the jump on them and they wouldn't be able to catch up. Their shields could allow them to sustain one blow to the hull and remain undamaged. But more than 2 successive hits could mean weeks of repairs, or likely much worse. Pawns, you have to shoot those nukes down before they hit Intrepid, she ordered over the comm. She saw the futility in it, though. They were going to get hit. Trust the tabla base. Just trust the tabla base. The doors to the bridge parted, and Commander Growl entered. No one stopped to salute him during the thick of the battle. He made it to the tabla base in time to brace himself against the first nuke's impact. The second came just moments later. Abby braced herself for the third, but it never came. Albino got the last one. Ma'am, one of the pilots shouted over the comm. Intrepid is holding shield integrity. Ma'am, a tactician relayed. The second blow was glancing. The tabla base had done her job. Abby looked up at the commander. The tabla base is yours, sir. Growl shook his head, his lower lip protruding. No sense in stopping now. You finish this fight. Abby allowed herself a brief smile, then went to work drawing the lines for the fighter wings. The tabla base was unsure of her approach, the harshness of her lines, but the tabla base relayed orders despite that. Abby was going on the offensive, not waiting for the Centurion to take another opportunity to fire its nukes. Fire whatever nukes we have angles on. I want them regretting this fight. The nukes left their pods, 5 total, making streamers across the tabla base. They struck one at a time, each one more crippling than the last. The fighter wings closed in, and it looked like the last rest would implode in on itself at any moment. Relic looked up from the tabla base. They're charging a jump. Ma'am, have the battle spheres been hacking their systems? Growl asked. Relic checked frantically. Yes, sir, Abby nodded, understanding why Growl asked in the first place. See if they can capture their jump coordinates. As the 5th nuke was about to strike, what likely would have been the killing blow, the Messav Centurion vanished, jumping away to safety. Did you get those coordinates, Ensign? Relic looked up, relieved. He smiled, laying his dataput on the black screen of the master tabla base. Take a look, ma'am. The spheres got all 5 signatures. Growl stroked his mousy beard. Well done, Ensign. Plug those into the display. Relic entered the coordinates into the master tabla base. The screen shifted to an expanded view of their current sector. The tabla base showed their current position as a red pin. The last rest's coordinates in purple. That's strange, Growl said, examining the tabla base. They didn't go very far, did they? It could have been a malfunction in their jump drive, sir, Abby noted. We hit them awfully hard those last few times. Relic awkwardly interjected himself. Actually, ma'am, if I may, the coordinates that we received from the battlespheres were those that they put in the module. If they knew we were hacking their systems, they could have performed a manual jump. Growl rubbed his chin. Not bad for a duffer. Abby nodded, massaging her forehead. The headache was back again. You're right. Simple mistake, is all. Growl mumbled. Let's assume that's where they intended to go for now. What intel do we have on that sector? Is there anything there at all? They're basically straddling the border of Zorak and Mesav territory. If there were anything of any significance, it would be on the Tabla base, Abby said. She looked up at Relic. You got any other ideas on that dataput of yours? Duffer, Relic, who had been punching away at his dataput, looked pleased with himself. It's no surprise this didn't show up on the Tabla base. It looks like the Mesav outpost, Nereth, had migrated to that sector to set up a remote communications relay a few months back. I found a few references to it on the net that place it at those exact coordinates. Growl braced his hands on the Tabla base. I doubt it's just a communications relay if ships are jumping in and out of that position from combat. We may have found ourselves the forward base of operations for this little Mesav insurgency. Abby squinted at the information on the Tabla base. There was something more there than just a couple of dots in the middle of the blackness of space. We know the Mesav were working alongside the Grakhan. Abby started. Growl corrected her. We assume. Captain Norim has yet to return from adjudication. Respectfully, Commander, we know what we saw at Furladen. We both saw the same thing. The commander nodded. Go on. She pulled the view out farther. What if this is part of the route the Grakhan are using to go deeper into conglomerate space and the Mesav are guarding them? Grakhan territory is galactic south, blocked from advancing north by Saren and Mesav. We know there have been sightings of Grakhan vessels even as deep into the Glom as Kalora. We know they're not cutting across Saren space. So what if this outpost is a hub along the path? Yes, sir. Furladen is less than 4 light years from where Nereth has relocated itself. That's barely a hop for us, even less for the Grakhan. Growl chewed at his mustache for a moment. You could be right. You could be wrong. Abby leaned in on the master Tabla base. Let me take a scout and investigate. Sir, we'll jump in, see what we can see and jump right back here. Even if we only get a glimpse of what the Mesav are doing, it's better than guessing. Sir, since when do you get to decide what missions you go on, Lieutenant? But Graal's smile betrayed his words. I believe I proved my worth on Furladen. Sir, Relic chimed in. I believe she has a point there. Sir, I have a hunch about this. Commander, it won't take me long. The commander's wireless buzzed as he was about to respond. Our communications beacon to Captain Norim has jumped back into our neighborhood. Sir, the message has been sent to your wireless. Abby waited while Commander Growl read Gerald's instructions. His smile faded. I don't know, Lieutenant. I'm confident in you. But now the captain is ordering us to jump back into Saren territory where he can meet us. Abby nodded, biting her lip. I understand, sir. Pardon my zeal, but Commander Growl wasn't finished. He stared intently at the master Tabla base. No, you're going to go. We have to know what the Mesav are up to. You'll take a stealth hopper. Stay off radar. Get close enough to snoop on them. Then meet up with us at our rendezvous coordinates. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. What do you think Captain Norim will have to say about this? I think this is exactly what he would do, which is why I'm agreeing to it. Now get yourself ready to go. Captain Norim expects us to be at the rendezvous point on time. You'd better get moving.
Okay. These lights should not be yellow. They need to be purple. That's a small thing. That's an old note. I don't know why it's there, but okay. No sense in changing horses midstream. Yeah, why? So this shouldn't be capitalized. It's odd to me. See, unless it's paired with the word master, it shouldn't be capitalized. Whoops. I don't know what happened here. Okay. So we should be good. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Another one down. Realistically, got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 left to go. Okay. Not tonight. Not all of those tonight. I'm not that crazy. I honestly need to kind of pack this in soon. Whoa. What was that? Okay. Because I still have I have lots of line editing to do. Man. And then a consistency edit. There is not enough time in the day. I don't know why. There's just not enough time in the day. Yeah, I'm going to have to do one more and then probably call it quits for tonight.
How close can we get before we're detected, ma'am? Asked Ensign Hurley, a young Space Corps cadet they had picked up on their last rotation over Saren. She reminded Abby of herself when she first joined the Corps. Bright, overachieving, and naive enough to be a danger to herself. Abby was staring at the Messav communications outpost, Nereth, through the view window of the stealth hopper. Shadow, this outpost is clearly meant for more than communications, she blurted. Ma'am, Abby cracked her neck. Getting tired of the cramped quarters. We could touch noses and they wouldn't know we're here, as long as we don't move too fast or do anything stupid. The stealth hopper's capabilities are similar to the night-class fleet runners. The only thing they might be able to see us with is their Mark I eyeballs. Hurley laughed softly under her breath. The rest of the crew didn't seem to appreciate Abby's quip. She turned her eyes back to her datapad. Are any of you having any luck patching into their systems? I'm getting nothing. Hurley and the other 3 confirmed what she feared. They weren't having any more luck than she was. Are we within range? Hurley asked. We ought to be, unless they're behind an aggressive firewall. Why would they do that? I thought this was a communications outpost. Abby smiled. She mocked a Messav accent. And I'm Queen Renant of Messav and her royal subjects. No, there's clearly something else going on here. We should have been able to get a connection by now. To receive and transmit data, they'd have to open themselves up. There would be some chink in the armor somewhere, another one of her crew asked. Back to Intrepid, then. Abby shook her head. They're long gone, and rendezvous isn't for another few hours. She trailed off in thought. What if we get inside it? Inside? Have you lost your mind? LT. Hurley elbowed her fellow crewmate. Watch it. Abby didn't need Hurley to stand up for her. She gave a firm glare to each of her crew in turn. On Intrepid I might not be much of anyone to you. You take your orders from other officers. From the captain, from the XO, but right now, you are under my command. My orders are the captain's orders. Ma'am, Abby straightened, satisfied with the adjustment in their attitudes. Besides, I have a feeling about this. We need to look over schematics. There should be an entire library of data in the system on every outpost Messav has ever built. We just need to find it. Abby and her crew began the search. It took some time, but eventually Hurley handed her data pad to Abby. That should be the schematics for this very station, ma'am. She looked pleased with herself, and judging by Abby's first glance over what she'd found, she had the right to be. This is it. Abby nodded. We've got what we need right here. The crew, however, still had their doubts. Infiltrating a Messav outpost wasn't part of the original mission. Abby knew she had to keep morale intact if they were going to pull this off. They had to be on the same page. We came here to get information. That's the original mission. And we're not leaving without what we came for. If Messav has allied themselves with the Grakhan, we need to know about it. This isn't about us, or even the Intrepid. This is about protecting Saren and the rest of the Glom. The rest of the Glom except for Messav. Abby corrected. No, even Messav. Somebody has to protect them from themselves. She and her crew pored over the schematics for upwards of an hour, studying all the points of entry, all the paths they could take. They decided on the most minimally invasive route, what would get them as close to one of the outpost's data centers as possible. It was risky. Questions were raised and alternatives were proposed. But if they could get in and out quickly, the Messav wouldn't have time to stop them even if they were discovered. It was going to be a race against time. Abby stopped the conversation. Okay, we could analyze this for a whole week, but we don't have that kind of time. We know this has a shot, so we're going to do our damnedest to execute and get it right the first time. If all else fails, the shadow can get us out of here in a pinch. Should we send a beacon back to the rendezvous point with Intrepid? Asked Hurley. Abby nodded. Probably best. Give them the details in case something goes sideways. She approached the cockpit and patted the pilot on the shoulder. All right, guide us to the belly of this beast. The pilot approached the outpost with caution, maneuvering to the underside and finding the designated weak point of entry and hovering there. Abby, Hurley, and one of the Marines that had accompanied them suited up and stepped inside the stealth shuttle's narrow airlock. The shadow released a small device, a hull borer. The contraption was the size of a finger, barely visible over the backdrop of space. It latched onto the hull of the outpost and started working its way through the metal. Abby reminded her entire crew, saying, remember, once we're inside, there is no communication in or out. Those of you on the shadow, do not attempt to come in after us or communicate by any other means. If we haven't returned in an hour, jump toward the rendezvous point. Wilco, ma'am, good luck in there. They waited. The hull borer had to do its job. Once it found its way in, it would locate the detection systems. After shutting those off, it had to hack the terminal. It gave them plenty of time to think about their situation. Can you see it yet? Hurley asked after some time. Abby waited, her hand on the contact of the airlock. Eventually, a green light flashed from the original hole the hull borer had made. There, Abby pushed the button and the outer doors opened. The edge of the void was just past the tips of their toes. By all the faces of Oth, the Marine said, I did spassuak training at the academy, but never with this in mind. Keep your cool. Abby pointed up to the hatch. They're still going to detect us at some point, the Marine replied. He was getting cold feet. What's your name? Abby asked him. Sergeant Keller, ma'am. Thank you, Keller, but we've already discussed that this mission is going to be a race. That being said, the more time we have in there before we're detected, the better. Unless you have something productive to add to the discussion, you can just follow my orders. Understood. Got it, ma'am. Hurley was the first to push off toward the hull of the outpost. Grabbing onto the hatch, she punched the commands into the terminal, and the hatch on the underside of the outpost opened up. How long until they know this door was opened? Keller asked. It was clear he was used to working with guns and brute force rather than tech. Hurley's eyes were glued to her datapad. The hull borer took care of that. It's the surveillance cameras we have to worry about now. Nothing I can do about those. Abby entered the access hatch first. It was the entrance to a maintenance tunnel, below the artificial gravity threshold of the rest of the station. They glided weightlessly through the tunnel to the airlock access. It was another tedious process to disable the alarms there, but Hurley managed it. You're going to feel heavy once we get inside, Abby reminded them, touching helmets so they could hear her through the glass. Be efficient. Don't waste a single breath. We don't have the energy to run all around this station. They entered the open airlock. Abby's legs nearly gave way under the unexpected weight. She steadied herself as the door closed behind them and the room pressurized. Hurley had to grab hold of the wall to stabilize herself. Holy shit. Abby produced her pistol, gripping it firmly in both hands. The inner doors opened with a soft swoosh. No alarms, ma'am, but they'll know this airlock was opened. Baby steps, she reminded them. Baby steps.
Hmm. Yeah, this just makes her seem like a bitch. Not what I was going for. Let's just cut that. Okay. Good. All right. Well, that's where we're going to call it for tonight. I could keep going, but I got to wake up early in the morning. I've streamed 3 nights in a row here. It's pretty interesting. Pretty good so far. I think we will continue this. I don't know if I will stream tomorrow night. It is Friday. So I may instead. There's the yawning. I may instead stream on Saturday, but I don't know. I've got to do editing anyway. So if I'm going to edit, I might as well stream. I might as well do them both. Might as well. Or you know what? I might check out Twitch. Try streaming on Twitch this weekend. Maybe that's what I'll do. A little bit of a change of pace. But all right, that's going to be the end here for today, folks. Thank you. If you watch the replay, say hi in the comments. I appreciate it. And subscribe if you want to see more. I got to get better at doing that. Like and subscribe and share and hit the bell. And okay, don't do all that stuff. Like it if you like it. Subscribe if you want to see more. That's it. Peace out.